Well, that was just a prequel.
I'm not a big fan of prequels because, at their best, all they're giving you is some additional information on characters that you already know. You know where they're going, you know where they wind up. And at worst, they are naked attempts to rewrite a character's history or place the writer's ideological bent onto an otherwise established character or story. And over the past few years, we've just gotten way too many prequels, most of which are either unsuccessful, like Furiosa, or just flat out terrible, like Alien Covenant. I mean, don't get me wrong, there have been a couple decent ones recently, like I did like last year's Wonka, and this year's A Quiet Place Day One are pretty decent movies. Now, I saw the trailer for Transformers 1 a few months ago and thought, oh look, another prequel, and I was going to skip it. But my son, he's a big fan of the Transformers films, and he asked if I wanted to see it, so I figured, what the hell, let's go check it out. So what do we have here? Is it a good prequel? Something that adds to the source material and tells a good story? Or is this more crap and garbage that had no business being made and that really no one was asking for? Well, before we answer that, let's talk a little bit about the plot for the movie Transformers 1.
Alright, let's talk.
So Orion Pax and D16 are mining robots who are born without a transformation cog, so they are unable to become Transformers. Pax, however, wants something more out of his life, and he leads his friend on a series of ill-advised adventures. When he finds a message hidden in scrap metal, he and his friend D16 go to the surface of Cybertron, and they discover that they have been lied to their entire lives. Now it is up to them and their friends to reveal the conspiracy. But both Orion Pax and D16 have very different thoughts on how to do so, which leads them into conflict, which will have serious and massive ramifications for Cybertron moving forward. So what works in this film? Well, we get quality voiceover work from our cast, which include Chris Hemsworth as Orion Pax, who becomes Optimus Prime, Brian Tyree Henry, who voices D16, who becomes Megatron. The cast also features Scarlett Johansson, Keegan-Michael Key, Steve Buscemi, Lawrence Fishburne, and John Hamm. Each infuses their characters with a very distinct personality. The animation is also pretty top-notch, bringing both the characters and the planet of Cybertron to life in an extraordinary way. And finally, the story was actually pretty well done. Now, I admit it does start kinda slow, the first half hour is a bit of a slog, but when it picks up, it really draws in your attention. And while its animation is appealing to the children, the story is very adult, and by the end it really comes together.
It's pretty good so far.
If I had to criticize it a bit, while the story I felt was pretty well written, it sometimes seems to not know what it wants to be. Does it want to be an action movie? Does it want to be a comedy? Does it want to make strong comments about how people can see the same thing and have similar goals but try to get there in very different ways? It wants to do all of these things and sometimes gets a little muddled in the delivery. However, that did not take away from a surprisingly enjoyable theater experience. I went into this movie with very low expectations, and these were easily met and then some. So let's go back to our original question. Is this a good prequel or is it a bad prequel? Well, I think it's a great prequel. Why? Because Transformers 1 succeeds as a prequel because it cares about the characters at its heart. It does not attempt to change their motivations, nor does it attempt to shoehorn a writer's ideological bent into an established franchise. You leave the theaters really understanding where the two main characters, Optimus Prime and Megatron, come from and what created their mindsets. They don't attempt to change anything, they just add to it, which is what prequels should do. Yeah, I know the prospect of another Transformers film might feel like one too many, but this one really breaks some surprising new ground. And who knew watching Optimus Prime and Megatron before they were enemies could be so well done? For once, they get a reboot prequel right. You have great characterization that does not ruin the source material, which sadly is not the case on way too many of these prequel films. Now, as of this review, the movie seems destined to lose money, but I have a feeling that word of mouth might carry this film, and it might really grow in popularity over the next few weeks. We will see. Look, if you don't want to see this in the theaters, I understand. You want to wait for streaming, that's cool. But if you are a fan of the Transformers, especially if you're a fan of the original animated series, you are really going to like this.
Much better than I expected.
Well, that's it for me this week. Tune in next week where I give you my thoughts and my feelings on whatever I've seen. In the meantime, click that like button, subscribe, share this video with friends and enemies alike, and as always, thank you for giving me your valuable time, and I'll see you next week. Take care.